Hey everybody, it's Abraham DeWeese once again with the SoCal Seahawk. Rob English, how you doing today, Rob?
I am doing pretty good, Abe. It's always good after a win, as I always say.
Yeah, it makes everything feel a little bit nicer. I heard you went to the gym and may have tweaked your back a little bit. Did you get run over
Oh,
by Chris Carson?
no, you know what? If I had got run over by Chris Carson, it'd be a little more exciting of a story. No, I was just, doing some incline bench press with the dumbbells and just strained my neck somehow. I have no idea how I did it, but it happens to me every once in a while, and I did it pretty good this time. So I've been laid up since then. So I had to kind of watch the Seahawk game and in a little bit of pain every time I, jump to cheer or to yell, whatever it was like followed by a wince or worse. But I powered through it.
On a level of pain, a one a one being having to watch reruns of that uh, having to watch reruns of that touchdown by uh, oh God, what's his name? Dak Prescott last year in the playoffs. I call that a one because we were going to lose anyway. Uh,
Right.
and five, which is having to watch reruns of that stupid Super Bowl 41 against the Patriots. Where are you at?
Well, let's see. As of last night, I was at the Super Bowl Patriots with my eyelids taped open.
Oh boy.
I
Oh
was at
boy.
that much pain. Yeah, but as about now, I'm probably at a two, so I'm getting much better. I'll probably be at a one by tomorrow.
Okay, good, good. Well, hopefully you'll be at a zero by the time this Thursday comes up and we take on those Los Angeles Rams. But before we talk about that, I'd like to get some of your feedback on the team that we just pounded, probably set back a couple months in their development. Those Arizona Cardinals, we beat them, and while the stats line may not have been that impressive, that did not look like a very good team, and we did not underplay ourselves. We did not uh, succumb to succumb to our own press clippings. We took it to them, didn't we?
You know, I want to say yes, but I can't help but, and I don't know what this makes me. This makes me a certain type of person. I'm not a shrink, so I don't know the terminology, but maybe it's a pessimist. I don't know, but I feel that as you said a moment ago, we oftentimes we play down to our to our
Mm-hmm.
opponent's level, and then at times where we don't, like on Sunday, I wonder. It makes me wonder. I can't help but think like, did we really just punish this team because that's what we were supposed to do, or was this team just not that good and it just appeared like we punished them like any good team should? And I can't help but get that out of my brain. But in this case, yeah, it looks like we actually had a game plan that worked, and we executed it to nearly perfection. And it was a clear case of just one team was better than the other.
Well, let's talk about that. We had a game plan, executed it to perfection. I am very harsh on pretty much every offensive coordinator the Seahawks have had for the last 40 years. And I've been very harsh on Brian Schottenheimer. But what I read going into this game was that the Arizona Cardinals could not defend tight ends. And what did Shotzley do himself? He used Disley to the tune of what was it, 7 targets, four or five catches, and yeah, it a touchdown too.
And a touchdown, right? Yeah, no, look, you know me, Abe. I am a coaching staff apologist. I always have been, and I always will be, unless I feel that it's that I rightfully shouldn't be. I had no problem with Darrell Bevel. Well, I shouldn't say I had no problem. I had some issues later in his tenure there, but I am all about this coaching staff. It's funny. No matter what kind of plays you call, it's going to look like a bad play if it doesn't work, and even the worst play looks good if it does work. So, or if it's executed correctly. So, I don't jump on put all the coaches in front of the firing squad. First things first. I mean, even if you just look at the interwebs, I was on Twitter for the Saints game, and they were just murdering Pete and Brian, and I called them by their first names because we're buddies. So, but yeah, no, the game plan worked out great. Yes, I was so happy to see Disley being used. Disley is, I think he's just a quiet. he's a quiet a factor out there. But it's like, do you forget about Disley because he's not Jimmy Graham, and he catches the ball. He seems to be sure-handed, and he's finding his spots and getting open for big plays.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. The guy makes a lot of big plays. He doesn't look like a body type or a frame that should be. He looks like he should be a left tackle in this league, but he does make plays, and he's being overlooked. It's something to the effect of 6 touchdowns in 8 career NFL games, and that's if he looked a little bit different. If he looked like you said, like a Jimmy Graham, I bet you he'd get a lot more play in the news.
Probably. He's unknown. I mean, who's this Will Disley guy? You know what I mean? The only thing I've ever seen, and the first thing I've ever seen about Will Disley, really in any type of news forum, is on my fantasy app, where they go a little deeper in depth deeper into the depth charts to find fantasy points. And I'm saying, like, they're talking about Will Disley. I'm like, wow, Will Disley's getting a little bit of practice. Yeah, it's bottom tier stuff, but he's getting it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I saw him at UW. I went to University of Washington and watched his career there. He was not a 4 or 5 catch guy. He was a 1 or 2 catch guy. He was a true blocking tight end. The type of guy that George Fant. He basically projected what George Fant is right now. And yeah, no, even at UW he was overlooked. So hey, I want to go back to something that you mentioned. You said that there were people drilling Pete Carroll and drilling Brian Schottenheimer. The fans were they Seahawks fans, Saints fans, just NFL fans?
You get a few trolls in there, that are from whoever knows, they probably don't even have, profile pictures on whatever forum they're on, but but no, a lot of Seahawks fans and
fans. Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and I'm a snob Seahawks fan. And I get these guys up, they can start talking. They just blah blah blah. Like, you can tell they don't know much. But
let's go back to that. Brian Schottenheimer. Are they going to give him credit for learning from those mistakes and doing better against Cardinals? Are they going to give Brian Schottenheimer credit? Remember last year, the first couple games, the Seahawks did not look very good. They made it to the playoffs off of a run first scheme. First couple games, first 3 games, I don't think the Seahawks have looked especially great, but look what they did today after having learned their personnel and, taking advantage of the weaknesses of the other teams. Did these people get on Pete Carroll for putting Chris Carson in? Because the dude ran for 104 yards.
What I tend to notice is that when the team underperforms, at least with Seahawks fans, this might be NFL wide, but just sticking close to home. When the team underperforms, we tend to go after the coaching staff. I think the Seahawks fan, or maybe the average fan, really starts to fall in love with Seahawks players. Maybe you know what I mean. There's a real affinity that the average fan has for these guys, and so when they don't perform, we want to blame it on the coaches. But when we do perform, we give the praise to the players, and that may not be totally uncommon. But I do feel that's what happens with a lot of the Seahawks fans out there.
I think you touched on something there, Rob. All my friends have not been blaming Chris Carson for fumbling. they've been blaming. Well, should the coaching staff teach him how not to fumble? I think you might be right, and I don't know if that's just a Seahawks thing, but yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you gotta give. The players are out there executing the plays. And those 11 guys are out there doing their job against 11 other guys who are trying to do their job. Sometimes stuff just doesn't work. Sometimes somebody fails. It's when you go for it on 3rd and 4th and short and you don't get it. It's not necessarily a bad call. The defense, maybe our offensive line failed. Maybe the defensive line just had it checked. You just can't be so quick to want to put somebody in the guillotine.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny though. Again, to touch on your point where you stated there's certain players that fans get attached to. Had, let's say, Christine Michael fumbled, they would have been crucifying the guy. They would have been running him out of town.
Yeah, I think so. And that's probably true. But I don't know that Christine Michael was able to develop what Chris Carson has developed in the short period of time. And Christine Michael had a couple of flashes, and people were kind of getting on his boat, but he didn't do what Chris Carson has done for us. Chris Carson has given us the highest level of hope at the running back position since Marshawn Lynch. I guess that maybe close.
The one or two games that Thomas Rawls had.
I was going to say, yeah, there might be a semi close to race with Thomas Rawls because he did look great for a while, but it was relatively short lived. So I think between Rawls and Carson, that's our hope. That's our post Lynch hope, right? What I mean? So and Christine Michael never got a chance to actually build that. So yeah, and he had a fumbling problem. So. There's nothing you gotta have something to work with if you want us to forgive you for stuff.
All right, so Rob, I took a look at the Seahawks offensive stats, their rankings. They are number 13 in yards. They are number 9 in points scored. They are 12th in passing and 16th in rushing. The reason why I bring this up is I feel like there's some things out of whack here. I did not expect to see that they were 9th in the league in scoring, and I did not expect them to be so middle of the road in rushing. What do you make out of these rankings?
Well, they actually, depending on what question you're asking, they make sense based on watching the games. Are they what would be expected? It's a little bit out of sorts, right? Out of character. 9th in points per game does not seem so much like the Seahawks, because we're typically not a high scoring team. But 16th in rushing, we've been slow out of the gate in the rushing game. So, the fact that we're even 16th, I think, is actually a pretty good deal. I think Russell Wilson has given us a lot of those extra yards to get us into the 16th spot.
Yeah.
I actually like the fact that we I would kind of harp on the number 9 in points per game and say that if you look back, whereas we are not typically a high scoring team, I think back to games like the Houston game where Russell and
Deshaun Watson.
Houston. Deshaun Watson, thank you. They shot it out for 4 quarters. The Kansas City game last year, the Pittsburgh game a few years back, where we had to score a lot of points. Where people always say Seattle doesn't score a lot of points. You score more than 24 points, you'll probably beat the Seahawks. But you got these quarterbacks that came in, you got these vertical offenses, and they went out there and scored with them and beat them. It just goes to show you that we can score points when necessary. It'd just be a little nicer to see if we could just score 40 and hold the other team to like 6. That'd be cool to see that every once in a while too.
Yeah. So you're saying don't look at any of the numbers except for points per game, because as long as we score more than the other team, that's all that really matters.
As long as we score more than the other team, that's all that really matters. Because again, it is our MO to score, a few points, and the defense, keep the other team to fewer. 24 points is our magic number. But we can. If you're going to go out there and shoot out on us, we can shoot out with you. I think we've shown that time and time again. I think these numbers might mean a little more when we get, halfway and 3/4 into the season. We'll see where our rankings will probably mean more to the team.
Well, so Rob, we scored on the New Orleans Saints. And while you and I had mentioned the week before that, we're going to beat the Saints, I think you and I kind of undervalued their ability, because what did we see last night on the Dallas Cowboy on the game versus the Dallas Cowboys? They beat the Cowboys. They dominated the Cowboys. So that might just be a really good team that we faced. And still we scored on them.
Yeah, it's very interesting because, the fact that we lost that game, I still say it's nonsense, right? We didn't lose that game because they were good. Now they might have I would say that they might have gotten themselves together for the Dallas game, but we didn't. The Saints didn't beat us truly, right? Did they? Did we shoot ourselves in the foot more than they actually beat us? When you're making play. I don't know. First of all, Alvin Kamara had a banner day, right? Let's not take anything away from him. He took care of us. He did his job very well. But I don't think his day was so good that we couldn't have overcome it if we got out of our own way. That's what I think.
Yeah, but then again, that punt return was ridiculous. The fumble return, they still have to do it. They still have to punch it out. regardless. I think that's a really good team, but let's not have that argument about a game 2 weeks ago. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at what happened 2 weeks ago and then what happened yesterday. There were a couple players that looked positively miserable against the Saints in Michael Kendricks, Tedrick Thompson, Ezekiel Ansah, Trey Flowers, to name a few. I kept my eyes open for these guys. By God, they look those four gentlemen that I just mentioned look good.
Well, it's funny you mentioned these guys, and I'll spend a couple seconds on each one if I can. Kendricks, I don't remember how many tackles I think I saw Kendricks miss last week against the Saints. I think I saw him bounce off of Alvin Kamara at least 2 or 3 times. And he actually looked good. I don't think I saw him really miss. I think I saw him miss one tackle. It might have been on the quarterback on Sunday. But he definitely played better. He got the sack early in the game. That was good to see. Tedrick Thompson, I saw him miss a couple of tackles, and he was slapping the ground like he was so angry that he missed a tackle. But when I watched the replay, it looked like he's taking a bad angle. This is one player in particular, but I don't know. I just like don't slap the ground when you miss the tackle. You know you weren't going to make that tackle. That's kind of what. Tedrick Thompson still has some work to do, but obviously a better performance than before. Ezekiel Ansah was good. I was happy to see him just get in the mix. I think he even got a sack late in the game. I think it was nice just to see him on the stat card because, we got him here to, we want to see some production out of him. We think that with Jadeveon Clowney and Ezekiel Ansah on the field at the same time, we got Jaron Reed when he gets in there. Our front line, our defensive line should be formidable at the very least. So it's nice to see Ansah out there performing. And Trey Flowers, I'm going to give him a pass on Sunday against the Cardinals only because I think my opinion and everybody else's would change if on that one shot, I think it might have been the second quarter, it might have been to Kirk in the end zone. Flowers was beat, but the ball was kind of overthrown. He wasn't beat by a long stride, but by a stride, a little bit of a stride and a half or so, and the ball was long. But if that ball would have went for 6, we would have been like, oh, Trey Flowers again. But so I think he was a fortunate benefactor of a bad throw by the young quarterback in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, let me go back to Tedrick Thompson for a second, though. You spoke a lot about the tackling. I think I was looking at it from perspective of, did he allow anybody to get behind him? And I think the message might have been clear after that debacle against Pittsburgh, that maybe Pete Carroll said, don't ever let anything get past you again. And he didn't, by God. He kept everything in front of him.
Right. Was that Pittsburgh or was that Cincinnati? The deep ball,
Cincinnati,
right?
Sorry. Cincinnati,
right,
yeah.
Yes, yeah. You just can never let that happen again, right? I mean, even though he was there to make the play, he just, I don't know, he just goofed it. But, I think we're usually good at keeping things in front of us. There's one thing that I noticed is that I think just by philosophy, we always guard the deep ball pretty good. It's not the same as it was with the LOB there. But I don't recall us getting beat deep, like just straight over the top, very often. And yeah. I think that's a testament to the coaching staff and our defensive philosophy. It doesn't happen very often.
And maybe that's why the Cincinnati game was so shocking to us as Seahawks fans. We're not used to that.
Right, exactly. We don't get beat just straight over the top like that. Now you're talking about a play where, the quarterback is behind the line of scrimmage, scrambling around a lot, and the play has time to break down and redevelop, and somebody breaks, semi-open deep or whatever. That's a different story. But when the quarterback drops back 3 or 5 step drop and tosses it over the top, we don't get beat like that very often.
No. And actually, if you take a look at this defense, I took a look at the numbers. They're number 6 against the run, and they're number 7 in total yards allowed. So as many yards as they gave up, they're doing better than the rest of the league as a whole.
Yeah, quietly, right? I mean, we don't appear to be the same Seahawks defense that everyone has grown to know and love. But quietly, we are, putting ourselves in good positions. turn the ball, not turn the ball over, but force 3 and outs, or not let the team. I don't think teams have been in our red zone too often this season. We're still looking a little bend but don't break. I think on Sunday we gave up a lot of yards in the middle of the field. But between the 20s, that's usually okay, right? If you clamp it up once you get toward the red zone, that's usually not a bad thing. I didn't like how David Johnson and I think I can't remember which receiver it was finding a lot of room in the middle. It looked like Kyler Murray was kind of buying time behind the line of scrimmage and letting things break down, like I said before, and just finding somebody sitting in the middle, usually David Johnson. He was able to break for big runs a few different times on Sunday. And so we've always been kind of shaky in the middle. So I hope to see us put a clamp on that here pretty soon.
Are you buying the hype on Kyler Murray?
I am. I really am. Kyler Murray made a couple of throws yesterday that I immediately thought of. The kid in Kansas City.
Mahomes.
Mr. Patrick, Mr. Mahomey. What's that? The State Farm commercial? my new Mahomey.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mahomes, just throws some wild throws, misdirect. He's running one way, throwing another. Murray made a couple of throws like that. A lot of it scrambling behind line of scrimmage, keeping the play alive and finding some awkward angled pass. Receivers making great catches. I am sold on the Kyler Murray hype. I think he just needs some more time to figure out the league. I think the play that when he got sacked by Rasheem Green, where he was scrambling out to his left and tried to stutter step inside and get out, trying to slow Green down. He didn't realize, okay, these linemen are going to get you out here in the league. This is not college anymore. You can't outrun these linemen the way you could those kids in school. So he's going to learn, and I think he has the potential to be, amazing in this league. He's certainly dynamic. He showed that yesterday on a few plays, but he needs a bit more of a supporting cast as well. But yeah, I expect big things from Kyler Murray in the future.
Yeah, I changed my opinion a little bit. I thought he was way overhyped. And you know what? I still think he's overhyped, Rob, but I think I'm turning the corner on, well, what would happen if you put this guy on a good team?
Right.
He might be pretty good. It's a case of he has no offensive line. Arizona Cardinals lead the league in giving up the most sacks. He does have David Johnson, but he has a offensive genius, that's in quotes, by the way, sarcastic quotes at that, in Cliff Kingsbury, who is running a system that obviously isn't working, and they need to change something up, because there's no way you can run a system, an offense, and not, in my opinion, and not have David Johnson be more a part of it. They're criminally underusing David Johnson, and I just I'm curious, like, what if Kyler Murray had this like the Chiefs, or had some talent to throw to other than Larry Fitzgerald?
I mean, like the Chiefs, or even, imagine Kyler Murray if he had been picked in 2012 by the Seattle Seahawks, and he had we had the wherewithal to bring him about slowly, like we did Russell Wilson, and then slowly but surely take the reins off of him, and and just do that same process. I mean, the kid, he runs for yardage and gets out of bounds. He seems to be smart. He looks not unlike Russell Wilson back when he was in his rookie season. No fear, just doing, because Russell doesn't do any of those things he did back when he was younger. He does a more older, more seasoned veteran version of those things, but not like he did when in 12 and 13, right?
Yeah.
So so it's I think Murray, if he's able to get some sort of direction and get some stars around him, or even just some, they don't have to be stars, they might be young guys, but just get some guys with them fighting them. I think Kyler Murray is going to be good, whether it's with the Cardinals or not.
Yeah, and I kind of always felt this way about. Do you remember David Carr from Houston?
Hmm.
Yeah, I thought that guy was a good quarterback. He just was on a bunch of miserable teams. Like I think Marcus Mariota is a good quarterback. He's just on a miserable team. You know, it's sometimes how lucky you get. And Russell Wilson, in a way, you know, in a certain way, he got lucky. He could have ended up in Miami and just wasted away with the garbage squad down there.
Right, and just to your point, I think I have to disagree with you. Carr is a garbage quarterback. I don't think he would have been good in anybody's team.
Oh,
But
he would have. Yes, he would have.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm not sold on Carr,
Mm,
but but
how about a
if
Mariota?
I like Mariota. Mariota's a fighter. I think Mariota. He's a guy who I think if he was on a better team, he would certainly be able to raise that team to some sort of prominence. Um, but yeah, the car doesn't fit that mold for me. Sorry. but
All right.
but to
Well,
your
anyway,
point,
anyway.
Russell Wilson. Yes, if Russell Wilson had ended up in another, honestly, I think if Russell Wilson had been drafted by another team, he would never even seen the playing field. He would have been what everybody said he was going to be when he first got drafted. I think it was Mel Kiper out there saying he's going to be a great number 3 or great. He'll have a chance to be a great backup in this league, and no one ever said that this guy is going to fight for the starting position, not until he was actually doing stuff already. Um, so yeah, Russell definitely was fortunate to be drafted by this team.
Cool. I mentioned Larry Fitzgerald. He's now the number 2 receiver in NFL history for career reception yards. I was thinking about this, and I think he probably is the second best receiver of all time. But I kind of look at the yardage, and I think to myself, do yards mean anything? I feel like in this day and age, a lot more. I was looking at the top 10 yardage receivers, with the exception of Jerry Rice. These are all guys who played in the last 10 years or 15 years, I guess.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just not impressed. I'm not impressed with yards, I guess.
Well, in the last 10 years, so the league has changed a lot, right? Larry Fitzgerald's been playing for how long now?
17?
17. So he's creeping up on 20, right?
Yeah.
So and so he actually played when the league was different than it is now. The league is certainly a quarterback's league now. A lot of passing. It's a focus. But I mean, so he's kind of transcended the eras of football. Him having all these yards certainly is a product of him being around for a long time, sure. But even to be able to be around that long and still be effective. I mean, how many guys, would have stayed playing if they had the option to, not because of injury, maybe because people just wanted them on the team. Larry Fitzgerald still keeps making the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If he wasn't out there performing, if he didn't have something to offer to that Arizona Cardinals offense, I would imagine that they would have cut ties with him, respectfully, of course, but cut ties with them because they can there's a roster spot there. They can put somebody else who can perform what they in a way that they need to. So that the guy he's been relatively injury free, if not completely. I don't remember him having any significant injuries in his career, did he? I can't remember.
I can't
But
remember every time now.
yeah, right. So he's durable. He can still play. He catches the ball still. I mean, he's got that locker room presence. He's mentoring these young guys. Everything about Larry Fitzgerald is a plus. I see very few cons, except for that he's just not the same Larry Fitzgerald he was, 15 years ago. But still, there's no negative by having him on your team.
Definitely. But I just am kind of curious. When I was looking through that list, I think about Bruce Irvin, Reggie Wayne, Harrison, T.O. These are great receivers, but then I kind of think to myself, what if I went back to the 80s and I just started thinking about the receivers from that era? It it kind of makes me think Reggie Wayne is not a Hall of Famer then. He didn't play in an era where you'd get your head taken off by Lester Hayes or Kenny Easley.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the guys can only play in the era they were born, right? So we can't really give it you have to gauge them by the era that they play in. And back then
Cats.
it was different. Now we play in a league where these receivers are just the game is made for them to get a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns and all that. So you gotta move the scale. A decade ago you had a different scale than you have now,
That's a
and you
good
got to
point.
go based on that.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. So uh, that kind of further puts Jerry Rice into a different stratosphere, doesn't he? Doesn't it? Because if the
I think so.
scale, yeah, if the scale is this, I think what's Larry Fitzgerald have 16, 17,000 yards.
Something like
Jerry
that.
Rice
Yeah.
is at 22,000, and he played in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
It's
So
crazy.
unless people were just bad at math back then, and maybe they screwed up and gave him a few thousand extra
That's possible.
yards. It's possible, right? Yeah. No. I mean, outrageous numbers. I mean, and that's why when you talk about receivers, you say Jerry Rice first before you say anything else. Otherwise, you're just like you're dismissed from the conversation.
You
You talk
lose
about
your
receiver,
credibility.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
lose your credibility. If you don't say Jerry Rice first, no one even wants to continue talking to you, right? So, he did all those numbers, when no one could even come close, and not even today's guys, with the game being how it is, are really coming close. So, it's forget about it with Jerry Rice. Yeah, he's out of the stratosphere for sure.
We got a couple minutes left. Let's take a look at this Thursday. Hopefully you'll be back on your feet and your back will be healthy and you can jump up and down as your Seattle Seahawks are taking on those Los Angeles Rams. What do you see? What do you see coming up this weekend? What are there any things that the Seahawks need to clean up? Is there anything they need to focus on to take on this team that just lost to the Buccaneers last night?
Well, first of all, I see this game being huge, and I don't mean just in the implications, because we both know it has huge implications with both teams coming in with the same record, 3-1. But I mean, I feel like the Seahawks are probably going to be thinking there's blood in the water, because the
Mm-hmm.
Rams just went out there and Tampa Bay just run the score. I mean, 50 points? Like, are you
Yeah,
kidding? Right? And but gotta remember that they scored 40 something, I think. So, it's they still scored their points, but to have a game like that against Tampa certainly says something. But at the same time, you got to imagine the Rams are going to be on fire when they come out there on Thursday to erase the memory of whatever that was yesterday. Um, Seattle, I think we have to certainly be ready to just shore up the offensive line. They're going to be coming after Russell. They're going to be keying in on Chris Carson. They're going to be trying to disrupt everything we have going on. I mean, obviously, in any game, but they're going to be on fire with it. If we can get some sure play on the offensive line, I think we stand a really good chance um, of just continuing on whatever Tampa was doing to him. And defensively, I think you shut down the run early. Let's put the game in the hands of Jared Goff. Goff, although he threw for a lot of yards yesterday, did not have a very clean game. So let's put the game in Jared Goff's hand. Let's stop the run early, which we've been doing all season long anyway.
hmm
I think Gurley. Um, I still think Gurley's 100%. Something's still up with Todd Gurley. So if we can stop the run early, we can kind of just eliminate the whole Todd Gurley factor.
I was
And
thinking about that too. I was thinking about that arthritic knee that Todd Gurley has. How does that respond on 4 days of rest?
well, the NFL has made it very clear how they feel about Thursday night football in general. I think I remember a few years ago we played on Thursday night and we lost. It might have been was it might have been
Sherman,
Was it Sherman
Thomas?
or Chancellor? That Tom might have been Thomas. Yeah, we lost somebody on Thursday night game,
We're
and
always losing somebody on Thursday nights.
right. And Sherman was very. So it wasn't Sherman because Sherman was the one talking about it. Of course, he's always the one talking. But he was very vocal in the fact that we do not like these Thursday night games. And matter of fact, that year, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. Uh, that year, Thursday night football took out a few players in a few different games. So yeah, it's gonna be something to watch. Not getting those full 5 days of rest, 6 days of rest. I guess it wouldn't be rest, but getting those extra days of rest, might be hard on his knee. He might see actually, a decline in his snaps, which is, would only bode well for us.
Oh, definitely. I also am. I'm with Richard Sherman on this, and I don't like seeing my team go out there on Thursdays and suffer these kind of injuries. Like I believe that injury to Thomas, that was the game that ended his career with the Seahawks, right?
Was that the game?
I think so. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just am tired of seeing these injuries, and I prefer just to watch them on Sundays. I mean, unless you can guarantee like a bye the week before, maybe I change my tune then.
Exactly. Yeah. If you can give, I don't see what would be so hard about just working that into the schedule. Let the team that has to play on Thursday have a bye the week before, and but I guess that won't work because they have football every Thursday now. It used to start later in the season. Now it starts at the beginning of the season, so we don't have buys after week 4. So right. So
for the first 3 weeks of the season, there'd be no bye, and nobody would want to have a bye in week 1. Let's just say,
of course, right. So the NFL's got to get their money. They got all those TV contracts and stuff. So I don't know. I guess that probably won't be happening anytime soon.
Well, maybe. Boy, I don't know. Like, well, I guess it won't change because, like you said, money. I was taking a look at the Rams. I think that Todd Gurley thing is a key factor, and I think another key factor. I get back to injury concerns and health for the Rams, and I'm taking a look at Clay Matthews and Eric Weddle. These guys are getting older, and they looked a little slow against the Buccaneers, and I'm kind of curious if the Seahawks can exploit that.
I think so. I think it looked like they were being exploited on Sunday with Tampa Bay. It looked like they were just kind of slow to the point of attack. And I think trying to get to that second level quickly was what was working, for Tampa's running game. And, and Jameis just for some reason just seemed to have he was just putting the ball in the money. It was strange.
Well, it could be Bruce Arians. Could be Bruce Arians' influence.
Supposedly, but
maybe it's starting to click.
Right, but he was so good. It was unlike Jameis Winston. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely.
Right. So, but yeah, no, the Rams have a lot of veteran presence out there, and those guys are good. But when you have too many veterans, you get a little long in the tooth, you slow down a little bit, and at some point or another, age, beauty overtakes age at some point. These young guys are gonna start running past you, even though you have all the knowledge.
And on the other side of the ball, I'm kind of excited for something that you mentioned a little bit earlier. That pass rush, Ansah's finally looking good. Michael Kendricks, Norton kind of unleashed him on the blitz. They're using Kendricks as the blitzing backer. And that's kind of exciting. And then obviously Jadeveon Clowney. This might be a better defensive line than the Seahawks have seen in years.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, big shout out to Jadeveon Clowney with that just masterful one-handed grab. Coming off, just released himself from the block from the offensive lineman and took that ball all the way to the house. That was beautiful. That was, I'm like, thank you, welcome to Seattle. Finally, doing. Not that he hadn't done anything yet, but that was a big thank you, welcome to Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah.
That really springboarded us into taking control of that game. But I think if we can just continue to gel the way that we are, and if just for heaven's sake, if we can just stay healthy, yes, the Seattle Seahawks defensive line and really the front seven stands to be really good this year. Kendricks, I was surprised that he was so effective on the with pressure yesterday. I hope we continue as long as it works. Keep it up.
All right, guys, this should be an exciting game this Thursday against the Rams. I want to invite everybody out there to check out all of our great articles here at Seattle Sports Union at www.seattlesportsunion.com. Check out our Twitter feeds at Seattle Sports U, and check out our Facebook, like us on Facebook, and check out all our great podcasts here on YouTube. Rob, I want to thank you once again for being on the show. We will do it again. We will probably next Monday again, and get our feedback here on the Rams. And I believe you have your own podcast that you'd probably like to mention to the folks out there so they can listen to your musings, right?
Absolutely. Short Yardage is the name. Shortyardage.podbean.com is where you can find it. Not only there, you can also find them links to it on seattlesportsunion.com. And yeah, add the RSS feed link to your favorite podcast app like Apple Podcasts. And stay tuned.
Great. Have a good night, everybody.
Go Hawks.